The Mojave Wasteland is one dangerous but also extremely mysterious place within the year of 2281. Scattered all over the land are many different groups and individuals with many different stories to be told. Stories of rumoured golden paradises go throughout all of the NCR regions as well as other smaller communities, giving people hope that maybe out there somewhere there is a place that holds the same values of the old world and has stayed intact like that of the Sierra Madre. Some characters who base themselves within their communities also have stories that have yet to be uncovered about their past, but trying to get them to talk requires skill and trust, otherwise their secrets die with them. Other stories tell of a technological powerhouse located out north somewhere, where a lot of the most advanced pre-war technology was developed and is still being used by some of the leaders of their factions. But is this area still active? No one really knows. But also within the bigger factions, stories and rumours spread like wildfire about good things and bad things. The NCR, for example, have rumours spread about their corruption at the top that goes against their original values, with some accusing the Brahmin barons of controlling the voting system as well as prioritising their profits over their people. But one of the biggest stories that seems to spread throughout all of the Mojave and beyond is of one mysterious but legendary man. The people who spread this story state that this lone individual was able to completely avoid death, and on top of that would venture over the earth with his skin burnt all over. This man would be known as the Burned Man, and to most would be seen as a legend and a bit of folklore. But to the ones at the top of one faction in particular, Caesar's Legion, this Burned Man would be seen as one of their biggest threats, and if his story was to be fully told, it would make them look weak in the eyes of their followers and their enemies. Little do a lot of people know that out within the Zion Canyon, this Burned Man lives on, ready for one courier to help him in his quest to hit back against those that made him who he is. This Burned Man would be truly known as Joshua Graham, an important ex-member of Caesar's Legion and public enemy number one to them. But who is Joshua Graham? Why is he such an important figure within the Mojave Wasteland? Why is he burnt all over? And what is his goal now that he lives as the Burned Man? Well, in today's video, we explore the tragic tale of the man known as Joshua Graham and his legacy as the Burned Man, located out within the Zion Canyon. This is the story of Fallout's Joshua Graham. Joshua Graham was born in the small settlement of New Canaan, located north of the Mojave in the pre-war city of Ogden, Utah. This settlement would be set up by the survivors of the past Mormon city known as New Jerusalem, which was wiped out by a number of different tribes and raiders, forcing those who escaped the clutches of these attackers to flee and seek a new area to set up. Because of the origins of this settlement being based around the Mormon religion, Joshua was raised as a Mormon himself. Luckily for this community, the years in which Joshua grew up were somewhat peaceful, allowing them to develop as a city and expand their ways of life. With the Mormon religion being a big part of his life, Joshua learnt the trades of becoming a missionary, as well as being an interpreter to help spread the word of his belief. Joshua was extremely skilled as a translator, as from an early age, it was quite clear he had a natural aptitude for languages, and this would become fundamental for his story going forward. By the age where Joshua was leaving home, he was already fluent in the dialects of several tribal dialects, and because of this, his services were now required to spread the good word to the people of the wasteland. And in 2246, Joshua was now off to become the full-time missionary and interpreter that he trained for. At this same time, a similar group started to develop and venture all over the country to help their fellow man, as well as learn more about all the different tribes located out within the wastelands. This group would be labelled as the followers of the apocalypse and would be a pacifist group only wanted to help, as well as focusing on teaching those who wanted to learn about their past, to make sure humanity never went down the same route as they did before. On his travels, Joshua would go on to meet with the followers and would use their teachings to learn more about tribes located out within the wider world. It was said that whilst Joshua learnt more about tribes and dialects in in his travels, his love for the Mormon religion started to dwindle as he was more in love with the idea of languages and knowledge. Because of his incredible skills with language, the followers of the Apocalypse would seek to use Joshua in one of their expeditions as they ventured out towards the Grand Canyon. Eventually, Joshua agreed and left New Canaan, taking the long 15 and 89 south towards Arizona. On his journey, he would go on to meet two other travelers sent by the followers named Bill Calhoun and Edward Sallow, who were sent to provide education to local tribes as well as study their dialects. In the year 2247, the group would go on to meet their first tribe known as the Blackfoot tribe, located out within the canyon. As they first got to speak to the Blackfoot, Joshua proved himself as a fantastic translator as he was able to make note of their language and document it down. However, it didn't take long before the Blackfoot tribe's hospitality turned hostile, and as Joshua continued to translate what they were saying, he would make an error, causing the Blackfoots to take offense to their new guests and immediately hold them as ransom. Whilst they were held in captivity, it became clear to the three that these tribes members were in fact at war against several other tribes within the Grand Canyon area, and because of how poorly managed they were losing badly. The three saw this, and despite Calhoun objecting to help, Sallow decided he would take charge of the situation, teaching them battle tactics, how to maintain and craft weapons, as well as making explosive devices. Because of this plan Sallow had come up with, Joshua would be fundamental to make this plan work, as only he could help translate what Sallow wanted to convey. As this plan went ahead, Sallow was successful and was able to transform the Blackfoot tribe into an incredible battle-ready faction who were trained in small unit tactics, weapon use and maintenance, as well as the manufacturing of arms and weapons. With Sallow and Joshua's teachings, the Blackfoot tribe were able to take out their enemies and become the dominant tribe. With this, Sallow, instead of completely wiping out their enemies, would give them an option to join their ranks or to die. With many of the other tribes being overwhelmed by their newly highly trained forces, Sallow was able to expand his army, and with it would come up with a new force, which he would label as the Legion. Joshua, during this expansive force, became Sallow's lead commander as he helped train the forces in a way that Sallow had learnt about from old Roman literature and led them into battle. Eventually, Sallow renamed himself after the emperor of the Roman army he idolized and became Kaiser. As Sallow became Kaiser, Joshua became known as his first legate, the Mojave Legate. And now, as they set up as Kaiser's Great Legion, their forces would go on to conquer any and all tribes throughout Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, which would only build up their Great Legion. It was clear that Sallow was the tactical genius of the Legion, as he had read about battle tactics from the workings of Julius Caesar and became obsessed with it. As for Joshua, he wasn't the same tactical genius as Sallow. However, now he was completely loyal to Kaiser's rule. He had lost all remnants of his Mormon faith, and because of that, his actions as Mojave Legate became known as extremely brutal and a menace to the land. Joshua would go on to commit absolute atrocities everywhere he went, helping expand the Legion's forces, and because of his ferocity, this would mean he would be feared by both friend and foe alike. It was said that Joshua was dangerous and extremely unpredictable, but the most notable thing about Joshua during this time was that he became legendary for being impossible to kill, even by the NCR Rangers, who were some of the best marksmen in all of the wasteland. The Legion continued to expand all across the wasteland at this point, and eventually started moving into the new California area, quickly expanding and becoming an extremely worrying force for the new California Republic. Things came to a head as Kaiser looked to take the Hoover Dam, an incredible landmark that would be an important take if his Legion were to take all of the Mojave and settle within the New Vegas Strip. Joshua, aka Mojave Legate, commanded the Legion forces as they marched towards the NCR garrison at the Hoover Dam. By this point, Joshua had become overconfident in his and Kaiser's ability, thinking no one could stop them. This was all helped by the fact that no one from the NCR could kill him, as mentioned earlier. Even the best of the best NCR Rangers could not kill him, giving him a complex as someone that could not be stopped. But this attitude would be the start of his downfall. downfall. In the year 2277, after being involved in many different skirmishes east of Colorado, the legate would lead Khaisar's 68 into the dam. Thinking they would be able to take it with ease, Joshua underestimated his enemy's forces, thinking they were just more tribes that could be easily wiped out. The NCR's leader of the Rangers, Chief Hanlon, saw this force approaching and immediately sought to outsmart the legendary legate. Here he set up a plan that was to draw the legionaries into a trap, meaning the legion would be completely leaderless and lack discipline. As the first Battle of Hoover Dam began, General Lee Oliver's main bulk of NCR soldiers held the line, fighting off the cannon fodder of the Legion. But as this happened, the Rangers and the 1st Recon sharpshooters of the NCR targeted the Legion commanders, killing them and causing chaos amongst the Legion ranks, causing the lesser troops to panic and the troops behind them to charge in, unknowing what their role was in the battle. Eventually, as the battle looked to be going in the NCR's favour, Joshua ordered his elite forces to punch through and take out the Rangers. But once again, the NCR were ahead of the legendary legate and had planned for this eventuality. The Rangers retreated and with the 1st Recon sharpshooters led the charging legionnaires into Boulder City. The legionnaires, unaware of what had been set up, followed them into the city, which would be an extremely bad call as the city had been rigged to blow with tons of explosives. As the legionnaires entered the city, the Rangers retreated again, and once they had left, detonated the city and wiped out all of the legionnaires, leaving the Legion in a state of utter shock. The NCR didn't stop there, as they used this opportunity to continue fighting the legate's forces, and with the detonation launched a counterattack, destroying the Legion on the western side of the Colorado River, forcing Malpai Legate to retreat from the dam. The Battle of Hoover Dam was a colossal failure for the Legion and spread a message throughout all of the Mojave that the Legion were stoppable and could be wiped out using smart tactics and elite forces. As Malpai Legate returned from the Battle of Hoover Dam, Khaisar was furious. Everything he set up had been ruined just by one battle. The NCR were laughing at how unorganized the Legion had been in battle, and something needed to be done to make a statement about this failure. Malpai had to be punished to make it clear throughout the Legion that failure was not an option. Despite being the highest rank in all of the Legion apart from Kaiser himself, Malpai had to be punished in the harshest way possible, otherwise it would mean nothing. With this, Kaiser ordered Joshua to be covered in pitch, lit on fire, and thrown into the Grand Canyon to be completely burnt alive. The stage had been set, and for Joshua, this was the end of his life. But as Khaisar's punishment went ahead, Joshua fell into the Grand Canyon, and the Legion's message had been sent that failure was not an option. But for Khaisar, this would just lead to more problems, as somehow Joshua would survive this punishment and would go on to become the legend throughout all of the Mojave Wasteland and other parts of the country. After that horrific event, all of the Legion had been sent a message. Failure isn't an option, and anyone could be punished for it. However, that following day, after the sun had risen once again over the wasteland, Joshua woke up, burnt all over his body, as well as being broken in many places. Despite going through hell, Joshua had somehow survived. Once again, he could not be killed, living up to his iconic name of the Unkillable Man. Crawling out of the northern edge of the Grand Canyon, Joshua had no other option apart from returning back home to New Canaan, all the way back in Utah. With his sheer determination, Joshua got back to New Canaan after 3 long horrific months. On top of this, despite being in incredible pain, Joshua had a natural immunity to modern medicines, which made it impossible for him to dull the never-ending pain. Instead, the only thing he could do was to cover his burns and twisted skin in bandages to prevent infection, making sure he changed them each day. In his own quotes, Joshua would go on to say, "It is better to be clean than comfortable." Eventually, as he did get home, covered in bandages and in incredible pain, Joshua was welcomed like one of his own once again, like a prodigal son returning home. This homecoming changed Joshua for the better. Remembering where he came from as a Mormon missionary, he realized that under the rule of Salo, he had slowly become a monster, using sinister and brutal means to make his mark on the world. Joshua realized that he had to do that at the time, and looking back it was making the best of a bad situation. If he didn't meet the Blackfoot tribe, maybe things would have been different, but trapped miles away from home, what else could he have done to survive in that hostile land? As he lost himself in thought about what he had become back when he was Maupai legate, he realized that whilst he could blame Kaiser for everything that happened, he instead blamed himself and used this new rebirth as a chance to seek forgiveness from the people he abandoned 3 decades ago, going back to his old religious ways and helping those around him rebuild a new peaceful world. Now a new man, Joshua went back to studying his religion and removed all pride and vanity. But with Joshua spending over 3 months venturing over the wasteland to get back home, many stories would start circulating about this lone, burned man that walked the land. For most, this would just be a story they would tell around a campfire or in passing. However, this story travelled further into the Mojave and eventually reached the ears of Kaiser himself. Knowing exactly who this story was referring to, he immediately knew that the punishment he put on Joshua had failed, and he had defied Kaiser and survived. With this knowledge, Kaiser made sure no legionaries spoke the name of Joshua Graham, and if they did, even in passing, would be sentenced to death. But this only enhanced the myth of the burned man and caused more intrigue about him throughout the land and amongst the Legion troops. Because of this, Kaiser had no other option. He had to send a few scouts and spies to seek out this burned man and kill him, ending the stories about this mythical man, whilst at the same time making sure that no one knew that Kaiser had failed at killing his failed legate. No matter where he was in the world, Kaiser would find him and eventually would kill him. Joshua, however, ignored these threats of Kaiser, keeping the idea of you hate the sin but love the sinner, which he had learnt from the Bible. As the years progressed, Kaiser's attempt to see Joshua dead ramped up as he sent more and more Frumentari and assassins to take him out and find his true location. But for Joshua, he ignored these threats and continued to live within his New Canaan community, regularly reading the Bible and developing as a newly born man. But by the year 2281, Joshua could not ignore the threats anymore, as his past had finally caught up on him, as Kaiser's forces finally found his location and were in for the kill. Over in the Great Salt Lake, Kaiser had sent his emissary, known as Ulysses, to come up with a solution to silence Joshua. Ulysses' task was to rally together the tribe known as the Whitelegs and have them rise up against New Canaan and watch over them and eventually take them out. Ulysses met with the Whitelegs and instantly became their mentor, with the Whitelegs calling him the flag bearer because of the flag staff he used to carry. Teaching the Whitelegs the values of the Legion, he also went on to show them numerous supply caches and bunkers hidden across Utah that gave them a load of .45 auto submachine guns that would define their battle style, thanks to Ulysses stating they would earn Kaiser's pride if they were to use them in battle. Now with the Whitelegs fully embracing the Legion's ways and equipping themselves with the best weaponry they could have, they would go on to march into New Canaan and destroy it completely. Joshua, however, was luckily out of the area at this point in time and avoided the city's destruction. Those who were in the city at the time and were able to escape the forces of the Whitelegs scattered into the wilderness, with many of them regrouping and traveling into the Zion Canyon. Joshua, hearing word of this, followed them and found the survivors in the canyon. Immediately they went to set up their new home within the canyon and came together with the tribes located within there, labelled the Dead Horses. And with that, Joshua became their acting war chief, who would help bring them all together. At the same time, Daniel, another missionary and survivor from New Canaan, would go on to set up with the tribe known as the Sorrows. Daniel had the view that to escape the Whitelegs, they would take both the Sorrows and the Dead Horses and evacuate Zion Canyon to lose the Whitelegs in the wilderness. Joshua, however, didn't like this plan at all, believing he could not just sit there and let this tribe bring harm to others. Instead, Joshua's desire was now to bring God's justice to those who harmed innocents. To this day, a fire burns inside of Joshua Graham. His new life has just begun, and now he has a new purpose. Whilst he tried desperately to forget his past and the people who were in it before, turning him into a monster, the past has once again caught up on him and has given him a new drive for revenge. The Legion's pure desire to see Joshua dead has brought about the death of hundreds of innocent individuals who were unable to escape the wrath of Kaiser. The elderly, the ill, children, and those who just wanted to live in peace were all brutally killed, all because of Kaiser's rage, knowing Joshua lives out there somewhere. For Joshua, there is only one path. That is to hit back at the Legion and the Whitelegs, who have angered him and his God, slaughtering the lives of innocents. And once the Whitelegs have been wiped out from the Zion Canyon, he will be able to set it up as a monument to the glory of his God. The sole responsibility of creating peace and allowing people to live in utter safety falls in the hands of Joshua Graham and the dead horses. Because in the words of Joshua himself, we can't expect God to do all the work. The fate of Joshua all lies once again in the hands of the lone courier, who ventures into the heart of the Zion Canyon only to be ambushed by the Whitelegs. With their help, Joshua could fulfill his God's wishes and allow his people to live in peace. However, he could also die in the process. Whatever the choice be, it's fair to say that Joshua Graham has lived an extremely fruitful life and has survived situations that no one else could. He truly has made a name for himself as the unkillable man, and on top of that will forever be remembered as the lone individual who scoured the earth and became the burned man. Ultimately, Joshua Graham has made his mark on all of the Mojave wasteland, scaring not only the NCR, but the faction he helped set up, the Legion, creating him to be public enemy number one. Once again, despite everything that happened within New Vegas, it is safe to say the world will forever remember the tragic tale of a man who was born again to bring about peace to the lands. This has been the story of the man from New Canaan, known as Joshua Graham, also known as the Burned Man, Kaiser's most wanted individual.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. I fell down into that dark chasm. The flame burned on and on. The next morning, I woke up and crawled out of the northern edge of the Grand Canyon, that cursed place. It took me 3 months to reach New Canaan. It was as though the prodigal son had returned. They welcomed me like I had never left, never done anything to shame them. The fire that had kept me alive was love. Their love. God's love. I will never be able to repay the debt I owe to them. But I must try.